welcome back to the Claim Your Right podcast for the Mama Writer Wannabe, where we grant ourselves permission to put down perfection and pick up the pen. I believe that writers are born to write, even busy mamas whose daily commute is riding the Hot Mess Express. My belief is firmly rooted in the eternal truth written on every writer's soul, that the simple act of writing can be healing, transforming, and liberating. Simply by you sitting down and writing, I believe you can change yourself, your family, your community, and maybe even the world. I also believe that embracing your passion and living your life with purpose is one of the best examples you can give to your children. In this podcast, you will find writing hacks, tips and tricks, coaching and mentorship, goal setting and accountability, a space for the writer in you to flourish, and an opportunity to discover the freedom, both personal and financial, that is rightfully yours. Hi, my name is Christine Holloway, self-published author and writing coach. I help busy moms reclaim the writer within and unlock their true freedom so they can finally start living the writer lifestyle they have always imagined. Welcome, my fellow writers. Let's dive in. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the third part of the Write Blueprint series. Today, we're going to talk about the specifics of your first book. But before we do, I want to talk about Easter eggs because they are so much fun. As a reader, I love them. They're also in movies, so as a entertainment consumer, I love Easter eggs. So Easter eggs are little tie-ins or connections from previous stories or minor characters, or they can be private jokes, or I heard of one Easter egg that R2-D2 is one like a hieroglyphic on one of the stone posts in Raiders of the Lost Ark. From Alfred Hitchcock, always makes a little cameo in his movies. Same with Stan Lee is always, in the Marvel movies. But for books, these can be more nuanced. So in stories, I love reading Easter eggs. I think that science fiction and fantasy really can do, like Buffy, for example, can really do this well. And it's something that I am starting to do now more as a writer. But most importantly, if you can do this, your readers are going to love it. It's how you can make some super fans, and they will definitely appreciate it. So Easter eggs are usually not a plot point or a scene that the main story is tied around. So you could cut it out and it's not going to affect the main story. You're also going to have more opportunities for Easter eggs. The farther you go in your series, the more you produce, the more opportunities you're going to have for Easter eggs, for more references, et cetera, et cetera. One thing I would say is making a reference, you always have to worry about copyright. I'm referencing stories as examples, but of course I don't claim them as my own. So you just have to walk that little line. But depending on your genre, I'm sure you're familiar with some of the things that are acceptable. And then one trick that I've been using myself is if you get to a point where you're suffering from some writer's block, one of the things that you could do is write an Easter egg scene. Even if you don't put it in, you're writing it, and it's just getting your brain thinking in a different way, not so hyper-focused on the plot and the story, but maybe, what's going on over here? And more than likely, your readers are going to love it. So there's always Google. You can do more research on Easter eggs. There's tons of examples. I would recommend Googling fictional Easter eggs or, fictional Easter egg examples. If you just type in Easter eggs, then you're just going to get a whole bunch of real painted Easter eggs. But anyway, so that's Easter eggs, the fun of Easter eggs. So now we're on to the book blueprint. So the book blueprint, you're going to do a lot of the same exercises as you did with the series. It's just going to be more focused. If you did a lot of the series setup, then this part is going to be a lot easier for you. If you did less of the series setup, you might want to spend a little bit more time focused on the book specifics. For someone who hadn't, I'm just going to go through. So if someone didn't listen to the last couple episodes, I would recommend it just because I might have said some things then that I don't remember about now, but let's get into it. So the book title and the subtitles, again, think of this as a working title until you get farther into it, because, the title might come to you at the end of the book. In the second to the last chapter, you're like, oh my gosh, that would be a great title. So just consider it a working title. And then, like I said, in the right series or in the right blueprint series section, your subtitle is more than likely going to be your series title plus the book number. So for example, my first book is Scars of the Heart, and the subtitle is Brides of Lilac Grove, Book 1. So you're also going to want to kind of outline your plot and the major events of your story. I'll get into this a little bit more when we talk about the chapters, but I would just do like a basic idea. Don't go overboard. Don't go plotting crazy. Again, we want to find that balance between plotter and pantser. Just give yourself the blueprint, the basic map of what is going on in your first book. Point of view, I went over extensively in the previous episodes, but just to recap, first person is using the pronoun I, and the story is being told through the main character. Second person is using the pronouns you, like I'm talking to you right now. Do not write your fictional story with that as a second person. It's difficult, and if you do it, make sure an editor reads it. Third person is he or she. This is how I like to write. A character is not narrating. Its narrator is talking about the characters. And no head jumping. So no jumping around into other people's heads during the same section or chapter of the story. It confuses readers, and you want to stay consistent within the section or chapter that you're writing. So for me, I write in third person, he and she. Most of my main story focuses on my main female character, but I also bring in what the main male character is thinking, seeing, his viewpoint and what he's experiencing, but I separate those by chapters. I think in the 3 books that I did, I only did one chapter where I switched between the main male character and the main female character, like both their viewpoints of one certain major event, but I separated it with the stars and made it 2 sections. So that way you're not head jumping, you're not confusing the reader. They need to know who's talking, who the story is talking about, or else you're going to lose them. And then finally, the format. Again, if you didn't solidify this in the series, you need to decide, is this going to be about one character? Is this going to be about one couple? Is this going to be about like a group of people, like the Scooby Gang, and the Mystery Machine, and they're solving mysteries every book? Get an idea of the format of what your book and then what your series is going to look like in terms of who the story is following and how the plot is unfolding. So the next section is the book setting and the locations. You're going to do the same thing you did with the series, but on a much smaller scale. So in the series, I talked about the world building. For my example, Montana, 1880s, Western. And then under that, I did the fictional town that I created, Lilac Grove, a quaint fictional town that is completely lacking in women despite the well-intentioned men's best efforts. So just a general idea. So of course for you're probably going to want to be more specific than that. So break it down even more. So these men have worked really hard over the last 5 years to make the town be a place that women would want to come and settle and raise families. They've worked really hard to get their businesses nicer and, the main boardwalk more presentable. The general store owner put in a whole section for like material and patterns for women, etc., etc. These little aspects of your town. And again, some of this will just come as you're writing, but the more you have it in your brain, the easier it is for you. It's going to be for you to write it down and convey it instead of just telling everybody about this. This is Lilac Grove, XYZ, like, a whole chapter on all the wonderful businesses and the aspects and the pros and cons of this town. You're going to be able to show it when, my main character, Adelaide, visits town for the first time. She's going to see this and she's going to see this. And you're going to be able to show the town through her actions and her activities, or whoever. You're going to be able to show that town through the actions and activities. But that's going to be much easier for you if you already have the town kind of in your mind and you have that foundation of what it looks like, what the vibe is, what's happening. And then again, like in the series, you go even farther down and you go locations. So Preston Ranch is a huge location for my first story. The main character inherits this ranch at the beginning of the story because his father dies unexpectedly. And it's a huge prominent ranch. They do cattle. Eventually they want to do horses. He's got ranch hands. He's well known in the community, et cetera, et cetera. But then you also might want to do a couple locations of places that you already know that aren't your main ones, that are just going to be semi-main locations. So you have a female detective, and one of the main locations is going to be her house, for example. But then another location could be her office. Or maybe it's a small town, because cozy romances are very popular. So maybe her best friend owns a diner and she spends a lot of time there. All of these little places that you already know your main characters are going to frequent, doing the exercise to write down the specifics of these locations, again, is going to help you visualize it in your head. And then while you're telling the story, you're going to be able to show these locations to the readers through the actions and the major plot points without having to take 3 pages and explain. This is Lilac Grove. This is all the businesses on Main Street. This is the bakery, and he's from France, and this is the restaurant, and it's the best brisket in all of Montana. Like, all of these things you need to be telling your readers as the story is unfolding. We need to show, don't tell. And then characters are essential and fundamental to any story. So you've already kind of mapped out a couple of the main characters, maybe some secondary characters, maybe even a minor character or whatever in the series. Take that information, don't necessarily recopy it, but you're going to want to go down even more detail. So for example, in my series map, my main character, her name is Adelaide Harris. And in my series map for the characters, I write mail order bride of AJ Preston, governess, 27 years old, chestnut hair, brilliant smile, considers herself plain and average, heartbroken by the friend she thought she would eventually marry. Now, for the story blueprint, for the book blueprint for book 1, I go even farther. Adelaide is immediately drawn to Jackson, but she believes that someone as handsome and now wealthy as him could never want her. She does not trust her intuition because of her previous heartbreak. Adelaide's motherly governess instincts immediately begin to kick in regarding Hazel. Just an FYI, Jackson is the male hero of my story, and then Hazel is his 11-year-old half-sister, which I go into. It's on my notes. In the cheat sheet, I added these notes so you can go through and see how you take a general idea of your character and then you're going to break it down even more specifically for the book. Some of the same tips I used before, give your characters flaws, give them quirks, idiosyncrasies, make them real, make them human, make them relatable. And the flaw could very well be what the main story is about. Like, overcoming this flaw is the essential aspect of the story. So Adelaide Harris and Jackson Preston are very self-conscious. They've been hurt. They don't trust. So these are personality traits, ultimately their journey in the story is overcoming these issues and then hopefully happily ever after, which of course it's a romance. So spoiler alert, happily ever after. And then your secondary characters are going to be more static. So in my example, I have Hazel, Jackson Preston's younger sister, who is a wild child. I have Billy the cook, who essentially has raised Hazel because her father was kind of MIA. Her mother left when she was very young. I have Mrs. Jenkins, who totally surprised me. I love this character more than I can tell you. She is a feisty old widow who initially, like, she's in the first scene of Adelaide riding in the stagecoach out to Montana. And quite frankly, I had no intention of Mrs. Jenkins being in this story. She was just someone that she was just supposed to be a minor character that Adelaide could talk to and interact with. And sidebar, and a little writing tip, that is one excellent way to show people who your characters are without telling them. Put in a minor character or an extra and have your main characters interact with that extra, even if it's a conversation, if it's, little things. Just, he opened the door for this, this stranger. Well, that conveys that, he's a good guy, that he likes to help out, likes to lend a helping hand. But regardless, Mrs. Jenkins has ended up being fundamental in my stories, and she's going to have her own story. I just love the story that has unfolded around her. But again, I had no idea she even existed until I got farther into the story. So, and the minor characters is like the restaurant owner or the baker owner or a ranch hand, who are very static, and they usually don't have any type of change. If they do, they become more of a main character in the story. And then extras, of course, are just who I thought Mrs. Jenkins would be. I thought she'd just be an extra, and she ended up being a secondary character, and she's going to have her own story, so she becomes a main character. And then always remember to write down all the new characters that you put in, even if you think they're trivial. Trust me on this. It will save you so much time and energy going back just to find somebody's name. In book 3, the Gang of Bandits, I couldn't remember the name that I had come up with for him, and I had to spend so much time just going back, combing through. Where did I write this? Where, because I had a couple scenes with the gang, but I only named him like once. So write those down. It'll save you so much time. And then finally, we're going to talk about chapters and outlining your chapters. I will take this time to tell you again, Scrivener is amazing. I highly recommend it. It completely changed my world and my writing. I cannot say enough good things about it. I have a link in my show notes. I have a link on my page. There's tons of other ones as well, but I can't speak to them. Like I mentioned before, Vellum is an Apple Mac product, so I have not used that yet. But I think there are other ones. So there's definitely one out there for you. The great thing about Scrivener, as long as this is still going on, they have a free trial. When I signed up, it was free 30-day trial, and it was like a total 30 days. So, I signed up week 1, and then I didn't get to sign in again for a couple days. I still had 29 more days. It wasn't like they take the days you're not signed in like every other person or every other company that gives you a free trial. No, like they mean 30 use days. So that's how it was when I signed up. Hopefully it's the same way. Let me know if I'm wrong, but I don't see why they would change that. Anyway, so you can try Scrivener if you need to. They can really help you in outlining your chapters, especially because they've got the little notes. They've got like a little cork board with like 3x5 cards, and you can just move them around, and it's amazing. But if you're not using Scrivener, that is why. So if you look at my Write Blueprint, like the kit itself, I suggest using 1 page per chapter. If you don't want to use all the pages, if you just want to use like index cards, that's fine. But have either one card or one piece of paper for a chapter so you can change the sequence and not have it be a big deal. So, but once you're getting into outlining the chapters, I really want to go back to what I talked about before, the plotter versus the pantser. Super important. You need to find the balance. So there's 2 reasons that I can give you to make sure you balance plotting and pantsing. And maybe these will apply to you, maybe they won't, but here goes. I first started my first book of the series, Scars of the Heart, last year. And I mentioned that I wrote the first sections and then I kind of put it away. The reason I put it away, so I had just discovered Scrivener and I wrote a book in Scrivener, which has also been shelved, but I'm working on editing and I will let you know about that as well going forward. But I had plotted everything out. I plotted the whole story. It was perfect. It was ready to go. Just write it in. Really a basic outline, but I knew all the story part, I knew the major plot points. I knew the acts. I was good to go. And then I got in like the first third of the book and I got to a fork in the road. And the story wanted to take me one way, but my outline wanted to take me another way. And I really, really struggled with this. But I had just done all the outlining and I was like, we're just going to do this. We're just going to go with the outline. This other story idea, I can save it. The way this story wants to go, I can save it for another story, whatever. So it was like pulling teeth. I could not write beyond that point. I was writing, I was deleting, I was staring at blank screens to the point that finally I did. I just shut it and then didn't open it up for another year. But when I did open it back up, instead of following the outline, I was like, all right, I'm going to let the story go where it needs to go. Then the flow was like water. It just came. So that's why I say don't plot so much, because you can really corner yourself in and you need to allow yourself the flexibility to be able to make the changes because the story might demand it. And then the second thing is my own little quirk. Basically, not so much outline, but if I write all the good scenes of my story, thinking that I can just fill in between, I can't, I'm done. The story will not come anymore. If I write the ending scene, even if I'm halfway through the book and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have the ending scene in my head. No, if I write it, the book's done. It's like pulling teeth. I can't fill in the middle. So what I have discovered works best for me is I will plot out, I'll do a general idea, like I said in the first section, the book blueprint. What is the major plot points of where you want things to go? And then I will outline the first section, whether that be the first third. I usually don't do the first half. I'll do the first third. Then as I'm writing the first third, I'm adding outlines to the second third, the second section of the book, second act, if you will. Make sure that's complete, or not complete, but once I finish the first section, I look at what I've already gotten outlined for the second section because I've been working on it as I write, I can do that. The story is telling me what I need to do later on in the book. I will do a basic outline for the second section and then start writing that. And then again, I will work on outlining the third section as I'm writing the second section. But again, I will not let myself write the last 3 or 4 chapters of the book, because if I do, it's not going to get done. And if it does, I feel like the writing, I feel like it's just flat. If I can manage to write those in between sections, I just feel like it's flat. There's no emotion. There's no, this is, it's just filler. Basically, it just becomes filler for me. So find what works best for you is the big takeaway from that. If you want to use my method, that's great. If you need to plot it all out, that's fine. Just don't get trapped in it, and just make sure that you're flexible enough to make the changes that you need to if the story is calling for it, or if you feel like you want to bring in more elements or take out elements, etc. Just be flexible, find that balance. And that is it for the Write Blueprint. The next episode I'm going to lay out the 7 days to series. And that is basically where I give you activities on each day, going through the right blueprint to get you writing your series and the first book in your series in 7 days or less. So I will talk to you soon.
Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review, please. Thanks.
Hey Mama, one last thing before you go. If you enjoyed this show, please share this with someone you might know who is also struggling to reclaim the writer within and might find value in the content. Because I am hoping everyone makes the right resolution this new year, I am offering discounted coaching sessions for the entire month of January. So if you need some help mapping out your story or organizing your thoughts, I am available. Whether you need a gentle hand or a drill sergeant, I am here for it. Find out more at ChristineHolloway.com, where you can also find more resources. The link is in the show notes. Thanks so much for your support and happy writing.